This reconnect happens automatically from within the Oracle Call Interface (OCI) library. What is the Load Balancing Advisory? To assist in the balancing of application workload across designated resources, Oracle Database 10G Release 2 provides the Load Balancing Advisory. This advisory monitors the current workload activity across the cluster and for each instance where a service is active. It provides a percentage value of how much of the total workload should be sent to this instance as well as service quality flag. What are the uses of services? How to find out the services in the cluster. Database services. Services are logical abstractions for managing workloads in Oracle Database. Services divide workloads into mutually disjoint groupings. Applications should use the services to connect to the Oracle Database. Services define rules and characteristics, unique name, workload balancing, failover options, and high availability to control how users and applications connect to database instances. In an Oracle Real Application Clusters (Oracle RAC) environment, a service can span one or more instances and facilitate workload balancing based on transaction performance. This provides end-to-end unattended recovery, rolling changes by workload, and full location transparency. Oracle RAC also enables you to manage several service features with Enterprise Manager, the DBCA, and the Server Control Utility, SRVCTL. What is I/O fencing? I/O fencing prevents updates by failed instances, and detecting failure and preventing split brain in the cluster. When a cluster node fails, the failed node needs to be fenced off from all the shared disk devices or disk groups. This methodology is called I/O fencing, sometimes called disk fencing or failure fencing. What is hang-check timer used for? The hang-check timer checks regularly the health of the system. If the system hangs or stops, the node will be started automatically. There are two key parameters for this module. Hang-check tick, hang-check margin. Hang-check tick, this parameter defines the period of time between checks of system health. The default value is 60 seconds. Oracle recommends setting to 30 seconds. Hang-check margin, this defines the maximum hang delay that should be tolerated before hang-check times resets the RAC node. How to find out the master node in the Oracle RAC cluster? To find out which is the master node, use any one of the below. ULS nodes, whichever displayed first, is the master node of the cluster. 2. Select master_node from the $guess_resource. 3. Check the aux.log file and search for master node number. 4. Occlumen manage get master in Oracle RAC 1C. V. Config manual backup. What is the difference between crash recovery and instance recovery? When an instance crashes in a single node database on startup, a crash recovery takes place. In a RAC environment, the same recovery for an instance is performed by the surviving nodes called instance recovery. How to kill a session in Oracle RAC? We use the same command to kill the session on the instance connected as the single node database only. Alter system kill session SID, serial hashtag. If we have to kill a session on another instance while connected to a different instance, we can use the below command. Alter system kill session SID, serial hashtag @ instance_ID. What is the difference between CR, consistent read, block and the current block? The current block contains changes for all the committed and yet to be committed transactions. A consistent read, CR, block represents a consistent snapshot of the data from a previous point in time. What is the difference between SRVCTL and CRSCTL utilities? SRVCTL, server control, is a command line interface that you can use to manage Oracle resources, such as databases, services, or listeners in the cluster. It can manage server pools that have names prefixed with ORIE*. CRSCTL, Oracle Clusterware Control, is a command line tool that you can use to manage Oracle clusterware. CRSCTL should be used for general clusterware management and management of individual resources. Oracle Clusterware 11G Release 1 introduces cluster-aware commands with which you can perform operations from any node in the cluster on another node in the cluster, or on all nodes in the cluster, depending on the operation. What utility is used to start DB/instance? How can you shut down a single instance? srvctl start database d database underscore name. srvctl start instance d database underscore name I instance underscore name. How to check the cluster, all nodes, status, and how to check the cluster, one node, status? To check the viability of cluster synchronization services, CSS, across nodes. CRSCTL check cluster. To check the viability of cluster synchronization services, CSS, on one node. CRSCTL check CRS. What is HAS, High Availability Service, and the commands? HAS includes ASM and database instances and listeners. CRSCTL check HAS. CRSCTL config HAS. CRSCTL disable HAS. CRSCTL enable HAS. CRSCTL query has release version. CRSCTL query has software version. CRSCTL start has. CRSCTL stop has AF. Brief explanation of the startup sequence. Once the operating system starts and finish the bootstrap process, it reads /etc/init.d file via the initialization daemon called init or init.d. The init tab file is the one it triggers Oracle High Availability Service daemon. When a node of an Oracle clusterware cluster starts, OHAST is started by platform-specific means like init.d in Linux. OHAST is the root for bringing up Oracle clusterware. OHAST has access to the OLR, Oracle Local Registry, stored on the local file system. OLR provides needed data to complete OHAST initialization. OHAST brings up GPNPD and CSSD, Cluster Synchronization Service daemon. CSSD has access to the GPNP, grid plugin, profile stored on the local file system. This profile contains the following vital bootstrap data. ASM disk group discovery string. ASM's file location, disk group name. Name of the ASM disk group containing the voting files. The voting files locations on ASM disks are accessed by CSSD with well-known pointers in the ASM disk headers, and CSSD is able to complete initialization and start or join an existing cluster. OHAST starts an ASM instance and ASM can now operate with CSSD initialized and operating. The ASM instance uses special code to locate the contents of the ASM's file, assuming it is stored in a disk group. With an ASM instance operating and its disk groups mounted, access to clusterware's OCR is available to CRSD. OHAST starts CRSD with access to the OCR in an ASM disk group. Clusterware completes initialization and brings up other services under its control. As per Oracle. Below are the high-level steps for clusterware initialization. Init spawns init.ohast, with respawn, which in turn starts the OHAST process, Oracle High Availability Services daemon. This daemon spawns 4 processes. Level 1, OHAST spawns. Stagent, agent responsible for spawning CSSD. Or a root agent responsible for managing all root-owned OHAST resources. Or agent responsible for managing all Oracle-owned OHAST resources. Monitor monitors CSSD and node health, along WTH agent. Level 2, OHAST root agent spawns. CRSD, primary daemon responsible for managing cluster resources. CTSSD, cluster time synchronization services daemon. Diskmon. ACFS, ASM cluster file system, drivers. Level 3, OHAST Aura agent spawns. MDNSD, used for DNS lookup. GIPCD, used for interprocess and internode communication. GPNPD, grid plug and play profile daemon. EDMD, event monitor daemon. ASM, resource for monitoring ASM instances. Level 4, CRSD spawns. Or a root agent responsible for managing all root-owned CRSD resources. Or agent responsible for managing all Oracle-owned CRSD resources. Level 4, CRSD root agent spawns. Network resource, to monitor the public network. Scan VIPs, single client access name virtual IPs. Node VIPs, 1 per node. ACFS registry, for mounting ASM cluster file system. GNS VIP, optional, VIP for GNS. Level 5, CRSD or agent spawns. ASM resource, ASM instances resource. Disk group, used for managing/monitoring ASM disk groups. DB resource, used for monitoring and managing the DB and instances. Scan listener, listener for single client access name, listening on scan VIP. Listener, node listener listening on the node VIP. Services, used for monitoring and managing services. ONS, Oracle Notification Service. EANS, Enhanced Oracle Notification Service. GSD, for 9i backward compatibility. GNS, optional, Grid Naming Service, performs name resolution. The following command will display the status of all cluster resources. $/CRSCTL status resource T. What are new feature in Oracle ASM cluster? The new feature added in Oracle ASM cluster is Oracle Flex ASM. It's a new ASM deployment model which increases instance database availability and reduces the Oracle ASM related resource consumption. How does Oracle Flex ASM works? Oracle Flex ASM instance when fails on a particular node, then the Oracle Flex ASM instance is passed over to another node in the cluster. What are the tools provided in Oracle Enterprise Manager? Tools provided in Oracle Enterprise Manager are Grid Control. It is used to deliver the centralized management system and provides configuration and administration capabilities. It provides the cost reduction plans and provides higher efficiency. Database Control. It is used as a graphical management tool to manage the database to make it configure automatically. It is related to the Oracle Clusterware. It is used to maintain the services of the Oracle RAC. It also manages the server pools that are being created with the Oracle Clusterware and provision to manage it from a single place. What is the difference between instance recovery and crash recovery? A crash recovery takes place when an instance crashes in a single node database on startup. When the same recovery for an instance is performed in RAC environment by the surviving nodes, then it is called instance recovery. How do you find out what object has its blocks being shipped across the instance the most? You can use the DBA_HIST_SEG_stats. How do we know which database instances are part of a RAC cluster? You can query the v$active_instances view to determine the member instances of the RAC cluster. What is Occlumen used for in a cluster environment? The Cluster Health Monitor, CHM, stores operating system metrics in the CHM repository for all nodes in a RAC cluster. It stores information on CPU, memory, process, network, and other OS data. This information can later be retrieved and used to troubleshoot and identify any cluster-related issues. It is a default component of the GR Grid install. The data is stored in the master repository and replicated to a standby repository on a different node. What would be the possible performance impact in a cluster if a less powerful node, e.g. slower CPUs, is added to the cluster? All processing will show down to the CPU speed of the slowest server. What is the default memory allocation for ASM? In 11G the default SGA size is 1G, in 10G it is set to 100M, and in 12C ASM it is set back to 1G. How do you back up ASM metadata?